But what if I told you that the same principles that these apps use to make billions of dollars and take control of people's minds, you can use for your own apps in order to do the same? You as well can build your own successful app that can make anywhere from tens to all the way to hundreds of thousands of dollars every single month. But the important thing is that you build an app that people are addicted to. I run the biggest lovable agency in the world. Every month, we work with dozens of startups building products from scratch, including scaling companies all the way to millions of dollars every single year, even having a few being acquired by bigger companies in the space. And I know this firsthand because I built the #1 lovable agency in the world. We work with hundreds of startups, scaling to millions of dollars, even having some being acquired after working with us. So in this video, I'm going to break you down the exact principles that the biggest apps in the world use to make sure that you stay addicted to the products and how you can leverage the same principles for your own apps. So with all that being said, let me take you into the computer and we'll walk you through exactly what to do. Okay, so we're in the computer now. I want to go over what these principles are to build an addicting app. The first one I want to cover is the onboarding sequence. Oftentimes, this is overlooked because people think onboarding is just, getting the user logged in, signed up, etc. But the truth is that onboarding sets the stage for what's to come and probably the biggest distinguishing factor between if people actually pay for your product upfront. And obviously, we are trying to make money at the end of the day. So there are a few different steps for an onboarding process. I'm going to go through them right now. The first is you want to set the stage. When a user first hits the welcome screen of your app, you want to give them a preview of what they're going to get inside. Maybe it's a dashboard, maybe it's health metrics, whatever that is. You want to make it very clear to the user that if they complete this onboarding, they are going to be brought into this end destination. You want to skip the credentials up front. You want to just make it as seamless as possible. The second you hit people with credentials is the first point of friction, and we are trying to eliminate as much friction as possible. And as we said, give them a clean preview of what the user will get. We're going to have a button that says, get started, and we are going to start establishing goals, kind of getting and understanding the user, whether it's goals, their pain points, etc. So we're going to start asking personal questions that are related to whatever this app is. So let's say the app is designed to help you lose weight. In the case of, MyFitnessPal or Cal AI, you're going to ask questions that help us determine what this person's goals are, their ability to lose weight, how much they currently weigh, what their goals are, etc. etc. And what this does is it helps anchor the investment that they're about to make. It starts creating this perception in their mind that if they're able to do X, Y, and Z, they will be able to achieve the outcome that they're looking for. And just by getting them to go through these even 5-6 questions, they've already made a significant investment in their mental headspace because kind of unconsciously committed to hitting this goal. A company that does that really well is Duolingo. So they will ask users to set language goals and choose their motivations before even signing up. And they create that expectation up front that, hey, if you go through this, you're going to learn a new language. And if we know Duolingo is probably one of the most addicting education apps there is, they've done a brilliant job when it comes to the product experience. I would say that Duolingo is probably one of the most prime examples for gamification. You have things like competing against friends, you have things, fun animations like this. They've made streaks really popular. There's just so much that they've done in order to make the experience as fun as possible. And if you look, right when I click get started, exactly what I'm talking about, they do not ask you for any login information. They starting to set your goals, right? So for example, let's say I want to learn Italian, right? Okay, in my brain, all of a sudden I'm like, maybe I do want to learn Italian, right? And I'm like, okay, so they make it fun, they make it interesting. This doesn't feel like an onboarding experience. This progress bar is also not something, this is very intentional, right? This shows you, hey, you have this much more progress to go. And as you start completing these things, it will fill out, which makes you feel like you're making progress and it feels, productive. So, as you see, this is exactly what you're looking to do. What are you trying to achieve here? Here's what you can achieve. They're laying out the goals and what you probably will achieve if you can do this. Now you start setting realistic goals. So this is all part of it, right? And we're gonna not do that for the sake of this. We'll start from scratch. And let's see what it does. So it's exactly designed to be like a fun game, right? I'm not sure. So this is genius, right? What they've just done, without knowing, have entered the product experience. Right, the onboarding is done. I've now started to actually use the product, even committing me more to the goal of learning Italian. Hypothetically, I think it's pretty obvious which one coffee is. This is purposely trying to make it easy for users to then feel like they're making progress. So again, wow. Obviously, anyone could do this, but look, I'm already starting to rank up hearts. I'm starting to get 2 in a row. The dopamine is flooding, right? These are obviously incredibly easy. But I'm on a streak right now. So this is like all part of it. And I think that a lot of people go through these experiences without realizing what's actually happening. But the truth is that every single thing that's happening is super meaningful and super intentional is probably a better word. As you can see through that experience, we also started to see the reward. As we were going through the process, it started what is going to happen if I can get kind of full access to the experience. I'm going to learn this language. It's going to take this long. And in Duolingo's case, it actually already starts taking you into this kind of reward loop that we'll talk about in a second. Another app that does this really well is Calm.com. These, again, another top product experience from Calm. And Calm does a really good job, same with Headspace, into getting you started right away, right? So instantly when you go through the onboarding experience, you will probably ask, yeah, exactly. You'll be asked to do your first meditation right then and there if you go through everything. And it starts creating this like reward experience where you kind of get dopamine because you feel like you've completed something. And then one really key thing here that all these apps will do, you know, if I were to go through this, which I'm not going to do, but you can trust me, which is that at the end of all of this onboarding, right, after I go through these however many more questions, or same for Calm, I'm going to get a paywall screen. And basically it's going to say, hey, everything we just went after, over all these goals, all these desires that you want, well, they're on the other side of this paywall. But you don't need to pay right now, because don't worry, we know that you don't fully know if you're going to use this yet. So instead, we're going to give you a 7, 14, 30-day free trial. And then at the end of it, if you like the app, you can pay for it. Now, what this does is it pushes this idea of payment down the line, right? But what they know is that 2 things are going to happen. Either 1, you're going to forget about it and they're going to charge your card, or 2, you're actually going to start enjoying the app and becoming addicted to it. And in those 30 days, which means that you'll just pay for it happily. And then there's obviously the people that may actually remember and cancel it. So those are kind of the 3 different scenarios. But what they do to optimize this is they're constantly running different A/B tests. And so your paywall screen is going to look different than your friend's paywall screen, especially if they're in different countries, different languages. They're constantly split testing this, because this is probably the most important screen when it comes to converting users, because it's the peak of the experience right before you kind of get everything. It's the anticipation, everything that you just went, spending 15 minutes on this onboarding flow, you finally can get the benefits of it. And if you want to be really, extra with it, sometimes they actually offer some kind of surprise discount, right? So if they feel like you're taking too long to click the paywall button, you'll get a pop-up and it'll say, hey, we're actually offering 30% off. Because at the end of the day, the math for all these apps is that they may pay, let's say $10 to acquire a user. And so they know that even if you pay, let's say $15 instead of the normal $30, they're still going to make their money back on customer acquisition, and hopefully can keep you as a customer longer to make even more money. And so for them, there's really no downside in taking a little bit of a price hit, because it's a digital product. It doesn't cost them anything to provide the service. And so it's better than you walking away and not paying at all. Now, there are 2 main tools that I would highly recommend you use. There's Mixpanel, which Mixpanel is going to make kind of every single action a user takes to a metric, right? And so here you can see the total sessions, you can see average duration time, and you'll be able to actually create conversion events. As you can see here, the purchase funnel, you can see where people actually drop off. So let's see if I can see this here. Yeah, so you can see kind of the different sessions. You'll be able to see how many people were completed, everything from even where they clicked and all this different stuff. So this is a really important tool, because you need to be able to track what's actually happening in order to make informed decisions. And then the second tool that I would recommend is Superwall. What Superwall does well is it allows you to A/B test that paywall experience like we were talking about before. So this is, testing different pricing, different designs, different offers, different monthly, annual, etc. This Superwall is going to be the tool that you can do this for. And it's a really great tool. It's used by all the big apps, and so I highly recommend. It also gives you some good conversion data based on what plans and pricing and all that stuff is converting the best. So now we are going to get into the fun stuff. This is what we're going to call the in-app loop. So I want to cover this loop first, because I would say it's probably the more important loop. Now this loop has one goal: keep users on the app for as long as possible. Now, obviously, I think this is pretty self-explanatory why you'd want to do this, but the longer people use apps, the more that the more you're going to retain them, the more money you can make on them, etc., etc. And so this is a super important part because you want people to continue to come back to the app. Now, how do you do this? How do the top apps, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, how do all these apps, how do they make this experience addicting? And it's what's called the in-app viral loop, or what we can call the trigger variable reward loop, right? Okay, so pretend this is a loop here. Now there are three core pillars to this. We have the trigger, we have the variable, and we have the reward. And we're going to draw a nice little thing here. Okay. Excuse my horrible illustration, but you get the point. The point is that these are the three fundamental things that you need to have continuously happening in your app. So let me explain each of them. The first, trigger, okay? Trigger is the thing that the action that the user is taken. In TikTok's case, this is swiping. In Instagram's case, this is also swiping. In Uber's case, this could be calling an Uber. In Duolingo's case, exercise for the day. In Calm's case, this could be starting a meditation. Anything that the user is actually taking action on, right? Now, I think TikTok, I'm going to use TikTok as the most kind of easy example as this, because what they've done really well is they've created a slot machine. And when you think about a slot machine, it has the exact same principles, and it's why it's so addicting, because you pull the trigger of the slot, and then you have a variable, okay? The variable is an important component because it means that the user is left to question what's going to happen, right? And so their brain is anticipating either a happy feeling or a sad feeling, but they don't know which one they're going to get. Now, which makes it so that the happy feeling is 10 times stronger than probably what it normally would be, right? Because every time you get it, you get flooded with dopamine. So basically, having this kind of loop where you don't exactly know what you're going to get. In TikTok's case, you have the experience where you swipe, you get kind of a shitty video, you're like, and you swipe again, kind of shitty video, and again, and then you get hit with the reward, right? Now, obviously, the more you can trigger the reward, the better, but it doesn't hurt to not give them the constant reward, or else they may just get overstimulated and eventually leave because of that. But the reward, maybe in the case of TikTok, it's that video that user just cannot get enough of. Maybe it's dog videos or dancing videos or whatever it is, that user, they know that they love that video. And so every time that they hit the trigger button, they're trying to come back to this reward. Now, this is the addicting mechanism that every single game, betting, gambling, etc. are using, right? Anytime you go to a gambling casino and you even play, poker, for example, right? You're essentially doing the same thing. You're triggering some actions. You potentially will win or lose, but you are chasing this reward. Hope that makes sense. Now, obviously, yeah, we have Instagram, Duolingo, TikTok as our examples. But now I want to talk about, this is the core mechanism, right? This is what keeps people in the app. But how do we get people into the app? Well, there's another loop that we have outside of this loop. And this is called the repeat customer loop. And the idea is, how do we get users back into this loop? So it's the loop outside of the in-app loop. Now for this, we have three different ways to do this, right? We have notifications. The notifications, when done in a timely manner, can be super effective, right? Probably the best example I've seen of this, of notifications that are really good, are Ubers, which is that for some reason, the second you reach your destination, you'll get a notification and it'll say, hey, we realize it probably uses your location, and it says, we know that you left your house, so when it's time to call an Uber back, here it is. And sometimes they'll give you maybe a little discount, whatever it is. Even at lunchtime, maybe they'll give you, I often get Uber Eats notifications because they know that maybe I'm hungry, I'm thinking about food. These are super intentional, especially when done in that kind of timely precision that companies like Uber are able to do. The next one, streaks. Now streaks, I think probably the best example of this is Snapchat. Snapchat made billions of dollars off a streak score, essentially, right? A snap score, where each person would have their own streaks with different people. And that made it that you had to go back every single day and continue your streak with those people, because then they would be disappointed. You'd be disappointed if you broke that streak. And I know people that have streaks in the hundreds, if not thousands at this point. So that just goes to show. Another one that does a really good job is Strava and Duolingo. And also both Calm and Headspace do a really good job of this, which is that every time you go into any of these apps, you know, the language, or you compete the run, or you compete the snap, or you compete the meditation, it will give you +1, another day to your streak. And eventually, if you can do this for, let's say, 15 days, right? There's usually a point where the app knows that if you can hit whatever this number is, right? For some it's 15, for some it's 4, for some it's 7, it doesn't really matter. But they know that there's a number that once people hit that, they are users for life. And this is where the money is made. And this is what we call LTV. This is the customer lifetime value. This is the money, right? This is what you're going for. That is why you want people to come back. And then there's one other way to get people to come back or even join this loop in the beginning. And this is going to be in-app referrals. This is tougher than I thought, but you get the point. What in-app referrals are is a user inviting other users to join the experience. So you give each user maybe an affiliate code or referral code, you give some incentives for sharing it, and you design features that naturally generate the need to share things. So in the case of Strava, they make it really addicting to share your run on your story with your friends, etc., which makes the natural growth engine basically be user driven. And they also build in functionality like a camera flip or other social integration features that allow you to just naturally want to share content of you doing the run, the meditation, etc. I would say Strava does a great job of this. Uber, you can get referral codes and invite people, ride sharing and stuff like that. There's a lot of creative ways that companies use to naturally grow from their user base. And so if you then circle this back, you have a new loop that is continuously getting new people, keeping them in the app, and keeping their streaks. Or getting them in the app and then keeping their streaks, right? And this mess of a illustration I've made here is the core to every single app that you use. This is when people say that the phones have created zombies out of us, it's because of this framework. And this is actually not that complex. It really is not. It just needs to be executed to a high level. So a couple things to kind of implement right off the bat. The first is you want to map out your user journey. So you want to basically clearly define what the user is going to do in that onboarding experience to get them to then come to the paywall experience. You want to make sure that we install the analytics tools that we spoke about so you can track that. You want to continue to run experiments, right? Split testing, different onboardings, different pricing pages, different first dashboard experiences. All these things are super important to seeing what works best. And we want to tie the growth of the product, the in-product experience to the growth loops of the product usage, right? Not marketing. So a lot of people can spend a lot of money on Facebook ads, for example, and maybe see a huge spike in payments or, customers coming onto the app. But what will happen is that if you get let's say a big top of funnel here, and you put a lot of money at the top, but then your churn is super high, which means users leave, you'll be in the negatives by the time they actually want to buy, right? And so this is not a profitable company. What you want is something where you can put money in and you get even more money out. And that, my friends, is the core pillar of building an addicting app. And if you can do this right, you yourself can build an app that does hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars a year, because all these apps right here have done it without a problem, and they've made billions of dollars. So I hope this was useful. I'll include the link to this doc down below in the description so you can get access to it. And if you enjoyed videos like this, I appreciate if you would hit the subscribe button and like, and follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn for the most up-to-date real-time insights on what's going on in the AI space. With all that being said, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.